Okay, so next on the show, we're taking a look at a brand new movie that has arrived on streaming services right around the world. No doubt that if cinemas were open in most parts of the world, Thunder Force would have made its way into cinemas because Melissa McCarthy is a little bit of a cash cow at the box office, even though some of her movies get absolutely slammed by critics. They still are bulletproof at the box office, and Melissa McCarthy basically has the license to print money when it comes to that. So the movie that we're looking at today is Thunder Force, and like I said, this would have been a cinema movie had the world's cinemas all been open. I know people here in Australia are probably thinking, but our cinemas are open, but unfortunately they're not in the UK and the US, so that's why movies like this one are going straight to streaming services. Now, this is one of the stranger films to come out over the last 12 months. It's written and directed, of course, by McCarthy's husband, Ben Falcone, who is kind of hit and miss when it comes to movies. Sometimes he creates absolute gems, and other times they are a little bit, you don't really want to watch them. But look, I've actually been a fan of some of the movies that McCarthy and Falcone have made over the years that others haven't really been fans of. I liked Superintelligence. I know a lot of people didn't. And I think this film kind of falls into the superintelligence kind of realm, really. McCarthy plays Lydia Berman, who is a self-described loser. That's what she calls herself in the film. She works a job at the wharves, driving the lift trucks that carry around the cargo containers. And she's never really forgiven herself for a fight that she had with her high school friend, Emily Stanton, who the older version in this film is played by Octavia Spencer. Over the years, Lydia's kind of watched as Emily's career has taken off. Now, Emily set herself the target very, very early on to want to do great things because her parents were killed by these things that, look, they have a really long name. I'm just going to call them mutants because that's basically what they are. They're mutants with special powers. Her parents were killed by some of them, and Emily decided from a very early age that she was going to avenge their deaths by finding a way to defeat these mutants. Now, Lydia teased her about that at high school. They had a huge fight about it, and she's always felt bad about it. Now, Emily is one of the richest women in the world. She is one of the most recognizable scientists in the world, and their high school reunion is coming up. So Lydia reaches out to Emily and tries to convince her to come to the high school reunion so you can tell that she can apologize to her. Now, while this is all happening, we're watching this mayoral election coming about, and the two major people that are in charge that look like they're going to become the next mayor is Rachel Gonzalez, played by Melissa Ponzio, and, of course, the King. That's what he calls himself, the King, played by Bobby Cannavale. Now, one of the big agendas that's going on with this mayoral election is the rise of these mutants that are just causing trouble all over the city. You've got Laser, played by Pom Klementov, who most people would know as Mantis from Guardians of the Galaxy. And you've also got this kind of weird, half-human, half-crab mutant called the Crab, played by Jason Bateman. And of course, Jason Bateman and Melissa McCarthy have made films in the past, and they've been pretty good films. So, the King's talking about how he's going to stop these mutants from destroying the city, and it kind of feels like he's got the upper hand over Rachel Gonzalez because of what's been happening. Now, when Lydia first catches up with Emily, Emily's kind of secretive about the work that she's been doing, but of course that all comes out into the open when Lydia accidentally messes around with some of the equipment and starts to develop superpowers. These are the superpowers that Emily has been working on to try and destroy these mutants, and she's being aided with that work by Ali, played by Melissa Leo, and her own daughter Tracy, played by Taylor Mosby. Now, this film does kind of sound completely ridiculous, but I kind of put it into the realm of Shazam. There's nothing wrong with the story itself of Thunder Force. It actually kind of works quite well. It's a little bit of a superhero story with a lot of comedy in there. But what I felt really kind of gets in the way of this film is that typical Melissa McCarthy shtick that she loves to do in these films, where it almost feels like she's always playing the same character. And that's the really sad thing that I find about Melissa McCarthy, because I've loved some of the movies that she's made, like The Kitchen, where she actually gets away from playing those kind of characters. But then she makes a movie like this where she goes back to playing that same old character, and it just gets really tiresome. Like, I would have loved this film. I would have said that this film was absolutely brilliant if Melissa McCarthy's character had simply been like just a hard rock loving woman that wants to make amends because of the fight that she had with her friend, and she ends up with superhero abilities. I would have really thought that would have worked really well. But you just have these moments where it feels like Ben Falcone's written this in such a way so that Melissa McCarthy can kind of outshine her co-stars, where she'll like do a silly dance or something like that you just kind of think, you kind of almost groan when you see it, because you think, oh, you didn't need to do that. That scene was working so well. I love the whole storylines around the King. Bobby Cannavale just has so much fun with that character, playing this kind of super villain that works. I love the Crab, Jason Bateman's character. I kind of wish there was a spin-off that was about his character, because Jason Bateman played the role so well. And of course, he's dragged into some of the Melissa McCarthy stuff sometimes. Like, there's a kind of silly little dream sequence dance thing in there that didn't really need to be in there, because this film, aside from all of that, feels like it's a cross between Shazam and The Watchmen, which would have made the film work remarkably well. But yeah, that little Melissa McCarthy kind of shtick thing doesn't really work. There's a few jokes in here as well about Octavia Spencer's character and about how her super ability is not as great as Lydia's, and that works as well, and you understand why Emily doesn't have the same abilities as Lydia. But look, this film's just okay at the end of the day, because of the whole thing where McCarthy's playing the same character that she always kind of plays. It drags it back a little bit, and I probably would have been sitting here saying this was a brilliant film if they'd done something a little bit differently with her character. But look, this is an okay film, I guess. At the end of the day, it's not a film that's going to completely bore you when you watch it, but it's not exactly a film that you're going to remember and want to watch over and over again. Having said that, it's worth a pass mark, so I'm going to give it 3 out of 5.